Things are looking up. The engine mods have tamed that aggressive power enough to make the motocross bike much more usable for enduro riding, although it still has an aggressive edge that could be exploited by a good rider, or make things difficult for less experienced guys. So next is the suspension. Typically, motocross suspension sucks for enduro riding. It is set up for very fast, aggressive riding and big jumps, not for finding traction in slower, slippery conditions. Bikes like the YZ250 suck the least because they have that brilliant Kayaba SSS suspension. This is why the YZ250 is so popular for enduro conversions. You aren't spending hundreds of dollars trying to make the suspension work for enduro riding. And it has one of the most user-friendly motocross engines too. So the 250SX, unfortunately even motocross riders agree the KTM suspension sucks. A common complaint for the rear shock is it feels lifeless and too harsh, but if you back off the damping it turns into a pogo stick. And the 4CS forks have been a huge problem for many riders. They are too harsh and yet will dive or blow through. Then, when you back off the damping to try and get a softer ride, the diving gets even worse. So you can imagine how bad it felt for enduro riding. In rocky sections, the 250SX felt almost unrideable. All sorts of solutions have been proposed for the dreaded 4CS forks. James from FFRC is actually a very experienced suspension designer, and he used their dyno machine to quickly assess what caused the 4CS problems, then did a pile of real-world testing and dyno runs. Instead of creating aftermarket replacement parts, he simply made a few simple adjustments to the existing internals, which he says let the 4CS forks reach their full potential. A few months ago, I got to ride James's 250SX and the suspension worked beautifully, so I was keen to see if he could do the same for this project bike. At the rear, that harsh feel from the shock was fixed with some custom valving. James also said he wasn't impressed with the existing damping adjustment and created his own adjuster that allows a wider and finer range of damping adjustment. The results? An incredible difference. I'm not an aggressive rider, so can't comment on all aspects of the suspension. But the forks soaked everything up and were no longer diving under hard braking. The comfort, handling and traction were all brilliant for everyday enduro riding. So how did James fix the forks? Understandably, FFRC aren't keen to release their hard-won info, and James wouldn't say anything, even when we held him down and tickled him. Personally, I think the suspension issues prevent 250SX being suitable for this enduro conversion. KTM do make very good bikes, but I feel they really dropped the ball with this 4CS suspension. It has the potential to be such a great setup, but it seems they had it 90% completed, then the design team went out for a few lunchtime beers and never came back. James said it only took minor tweaks to the existing parts to make it work brilliantly. Why didn't KTM do this? Who knows? Most guys look at these motocross conversions to save money, but spending hundreds to make your suspension work properly is self-defeating. And bikes like the YZ250 have great suspension already and better engines for enduro work. But anyway, this 250SX is now handing beautifully. So, on with the series. Next, we'll look into wheels, tyres, and some other finishing touches.